In the blog post that accompanies this video, I start to look at some of the cost opportunities, the cost saving opportunities that businesses are beginning to explore in the wake of the pandemic. From my personal experience, the three biggest costs in any business are people, places, I mean the offices, the facilities that they own and rent, and travel. So I look in the blog post briefly at some of those topics and how they're changing. So go ahead and have a look at that if you're interested in seeing how much Pinterest is saving from getting rid of their HQ, and some of the ideas that are being circulated about just because you work from home or remotely, you should have a pay cut. Not a fan of those. But in this video, I just want to talk very briefly about three other things, and they're all to do with community. So as we work remotely, we break that notion that we've had for quite a long time of people living in one place and commuting and traveling and working in another place. If we think about that, each one of those places, whether it's a rural, suburban environment, and the workplace environment, has different communities depending on where you are and what you're doing. You have your personal and your private life in one area, and then you have your professional and your after work life in another area. As we move to work from home, like many of us do, like I'm doing right now, and I have done since last century, those boundaries disappear. So what implication does that have for us, for companies, and for technology? What opportunities are there for technology to help us in this new world? Because the thing that I realize is that, Zoom calls and remote stuff is fine. It's good for so many things, but there's still that need for human interaction. I mean, that's what us humans are all about. If you lose that, you lose the humans. So I really don't see a world where we're all just locked in a room and we're communicating digitally. We need to find a way to continue to build those communities. So that gets me thinking on to another topic. So the other topic is that with all of these decentralization and distributed teams, there are tools and techniques and technologies out there that can allow us to build communities. Now, those communities are communities that can span the physical and the digital worlds, but also they can span different spheres as well. So you might have community who, if you want to go and play football or volleyball, you might have communities where they're the people that you know because you take your kids to school, so the school network. But also you're going to have these different business communities now as well near the places where people live. We're going to start to have people networking and working together from industries and backgrounds and disciplines that they never would have had the opportunity to do so in the past, just because they want to have that physical interaction. So what does that mean? How can technologies help support and grow that kind of matchmaking, if you like, between people who want to have explore those different reasons for community, create those new communities? So I'm interested in exploring that. The other part of this is that as more and more people are working from home, where does the responsibility of the employer stop? So if you're working in an office, it's pretty clear that the employer is responsible for the office, the environment. You go on these health and safety courses. You have your desk set up ergonomically. You have, if you're lucky, coffee and snacks brought to the office, and the temperature and the air quality is maintained. So thinking back to the summer we've just had and all these people who are working from home, maybe from the spare room, maybe from a little office in their home, no one's controlling the temperature or air quality in those offices. So as temperatures go up above 36 degrees centigrade, as they have done, and air quality drops because people are locked in these rooms on long conference calls and carbon dioxide levels go up, can we expect the employers to take some responsibility for those environments? And if so, where does that line stop? There's a line there, isn't there? And it's interesting to try and think how far that employer responsibility should go before it becomes spying or prying. And I've heard that line is already being kind of tensioned, particularly in the regulatory space, where it's really important to understand what your employees are doing from a regulatory compliance point of view. And you can no longer assume that all of the communications are being done through the computer on the desk. So you've got to start interacting with people in a different way, listening to what they're saying, reading what they're saying. It becomes a bit creepy. And there is that line between spying and prying. So I'm really interested in exploring technologies that are doing that. And then there's also the mental health and well-being. So how do we make sure that people are not suffering when they're working from home? Suffering in silence is the worst thing. The most dangerous thing when it comes to mental health is not talking about it. So I have already seen a lot of technologies that are coming out to help measure mental health and be more proactive in prevention of troubles and problems and identify issues amongst teams. Again, there's a spy and pry issue here that I'm keen to explore too. So again, let's try and find together some technologies and some solutions that are really trying to help make the remote workplace as safe and as healthy and as productive, even I would say even more productive, I think, than the office-based workplace. Now, some other thoughts that are kind of going through my head here as well are, when I work from home, my business can take a small amount of tax relief from using the home as an office. As more and more people do that, how will tax evolve? How will insurance evolve? What about security? As we have more equipment at home, is there a higher risk of theft, burglary? How do we manage security within those communities? And then lastly, as we talk about communities as well, going back to the idea of decentralization, there are many businesses today that are run as a network, as a interaction of people and technology in some way, and that's facilitated by a platform. That platform is owned by a business, an entity, and that business and entity is beholden to its shareholders, to the markets, to deliver returns and profit and growth. If you were to take away that entity, would the platform still operate? Could it operate? And could it serve better the people who are operating it and part of that platform? How does that map to communities? Could we find that some of these new decentralization tools and techniques can foster better local farming? Can they foster communities where maybe you have more kind of trading and bartering over digital currencies and technologies too? I'm really keen to explore some of these ideas. So if you have any comments, any thoughts on this, perhaps you're working in this space or you've written a book in this space, please do get in touch. I'd love to speak with you. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave your comments and get in touch.